Ambassador Veltar's hands shook as he read the ancient warning displayed on his command screen. For 3,000 years, the message had remained the same. Danger. Sol system quarantine. No approach authorized. The blue letters glowed against the black background like a curse that refused to fade. "Sir, you need to see this." Communications Officer Nexri called from across the bridge. Her voice carried a tremor that made every crew member turn their heads. Veltar walked slowly to her station, his four eyes focused on the data streaming across her monitors. What he saw made his blood freeze. A transmission was coming from the forbidden zone around Earth, the first signal detected from human space in nearly 3 millennia. "Play it," he whispered. The speakers crackled with static. Then a voice emerged speaking in the ancient human language. The words were desperate, pleading, asking for help. But what terrified Veltar most was not the message itself, but the coordinates that followed. They led directly to Earth. Captain Mordak approached with heavy steps. His scarred face showed the wisdom of someone who had fought in the border wars and lived to tell about it. "Ambassador, my crew is getting nervous. The legends about humans are still fresh in some minds." Veltar nodded slowly. The legends were more than stories to the older generation. They spoke of a species that could bend reality with their thoughts, who had once made entire fleets disappear with nothing more than concentrated will. The humans had been the most feared race in the galaxy until they simply went silent. "Dr. Kira," Veltar called to the expedition scientist. "What do our records say about the last human contact?" The pale, thin alien consulted her datapad with nervous fingers. "Official records show they stopped responding to all communications 2,147 years ago. The Confederation Council declared them extinct after 50 years of silence. But sir, there are unofficial reports that suggest something different." "What kind of reports?" Dr. Kira's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "Some say they went to sleep, that they chose to become dormant rather than risk destroying the galaxy with their power." The bridge fell silent except for the steady hum of the ship's engines. Every crew member had heard the stories passed down through generations. Stories of human children who could make stars dance, of human soldiers who could wish their enemies out of existence, of human mourners whose grief could tear holes in space and time itself. "The transmission is getting stronger," Nexri reported. "It's definitely coming from Earth's surface." Veltar stared at the tactical display showing the Sol system. It looked peaceful enough from this distance, but the energy readings were beginning to spike. Their instruments showed power levels that should have been impossible for a single planet to generate. "Sir, I recommend we maintain our distance," Captain Mordak said. "The quarantine protocols exist for good reason." But Veltar was already thinking about the political implications. If the humans were truly awakening, the Galactic Confederation needed to know. The balance of power that had existed for 3,000 years was about to shift, and every species in the galaxy would be affected. "Deploy long-range reconnaissance probes," he ordered. "Keep them at maximum distance, but I want continuous monitoring of the Sol system." "Sir, the probes are picking up something unusual," Nexri announced minutes later. "The energy signatures around Earth are unlike anything in our databases. It's as if the planet itself is thinking." Dr. Kira leaned over her instruments, her eyes wide with fascination and fear. "The quantum fluctuations are off the charts. Reality itself seems to be more flexible near Earth than it should be." Veltar felt a chill run down his spine. The ancient warnings had been right. Whatever had made the galaxy fear humanity was still there, sleeping beneath the surface of that small blue world. And now it was starting to wake up. "Continue monitoring," he commanded, "but be ready to jump to hyperspace at the first sign of hostile activity." As the hours passed, the signals from Earth grew stronger and more frequent. The distress calls came in different languages, from different locations across the planet, but there was something else mixed in with the messages, something that made the ship's artificial intelligence struggle to process the data. "Ambassador," Dr. Kira said, her voice filled with wonder and terror. "I think the humans are dreaming, all of them, at the same time, and their dreams are starting to leak into reality." Veltar closed his eyes and tried to imagine what that meant. A species that could reshape existence with their thoughts, now stirring from a sleep that had lasted for millennia. The galaxy had enjoyed 3,000 years of relative peace. But that peace had been built on the assumption that humanity would never wake up. "Send a message to Confederation Command," he ordered. "Tell them the quarantine around Sol system may soon be irrelevant. The humans are awakening, and when they do, everything is going to change." The ship continued its silent vigil at the edge of human space, watching and waiting as something ancient and powerful began to stir on the small blue planet that had once made the entire galaxy tremble with fear. Dr. Kira's claws clicked nervously against her datapad as she walked through the ruins of what had once been New Busan Colony on Kepler 442b. The human settlement had been abandoned for over 2,000 years, but something about it felt wrong. The buildings stood perfectly preserved, as if time itself had forgotten to touch them. "Look at this structure," she called to Captain Mordak, pointing at a tower that seemed to twist in ways that hurt to look at. "According to my instruments, it exists in 7 dimensions at once." Mordak approached carefully, his experienced soldier's instincts screaming warnings. "The humans lived here?" "For 300 years before they went silent," Dr. Kira confirmed. "But they didn't just live here. They changed the very nature of this place." Nexri emerged from what appeared to be a library, her arms full of data. "Crystals. I found their records. Most of it is corrupted, but what I can read is impossible. They describe events that contradict basic physics. Ambassador Veltar joined them in the central plaza, where a monument stood that defied explanation. The stone surface showed moving images like a living hologram, depicting a great battle among the stars. Human figures stood with their hands raised, not in surrender but in concentration. As they watched, enemy ships in the hologram simply faded away, as if they had never existed. "What happened here?" Veltar whispered. Dr. Kira activated her translation matrix and began reading from the recovered files. They called it the Gimhe Incident. A Zarketh battle fleet arrived to claim this system. 300 ships, enough firepower to crack a planet. The human colonists had no weapons, no military vessels. Then how did they survive? "Captain," Mordak asked, though his voice suggested he already feared the answer. "They didn't fight the fleet," Dr. Kira continued reading. "According to these records, the colonists gathered in this plaza and simply wished the enemy away. Not destroyed, not defeated. The entire Zarketh fleet was retroactively removed from existence. The ships were never built, the crews never born, the metal never mined to make them." The silence that followed was broken only by the strange harmonics that seemed to emerge from the buildings around them. Even after millennia of abandonment, the colony still hummed with residual energy. Nexri pulled up another file on her portable screen. "Here's something even stranger. A report from the Andorian Trade Federation about their dealings with humans. They describe a business dispute over mining rights that escalated to the point of war. The Andorians sent a fleet to blockade human worlds." "What happened?" Veltar asked, though he was beginning to see a pattern. "The humans held a planetary referendum. 7 billion people voted on whether the Andorian Empire should exist. The vote was close, but the majority decided it should not." Nexri's voice grew quieter. "The next day there was no Andorian Empire. There never had been. The space they occupied became a peaceful cluster of independent worlds that had evolved separately." Captain Mordak sat heavily on a nearby bench that adjusted its shape to accommodate his bulk. "You're telling me humans could vote species out of existence?" Dr. Kira nodded grimly. "The records suggest their power grew stronger when they acted together. Individual humans could bend reality in small ways, but when they focused their collective will, they could rewrite the fundamental structure of the universe." "Then why did they stop?" Veltar asked. "If they had such power, why go dormant?" The answer came from an unexpected source. As they spoke, the monument began displaying new images. The moving hologram showed a human city under attack, defenders falling one by one. Then it showed something that made all 4 aliens step back in horror. "The Incheon Tragedy," Dr. Kira read from a file that had suddenly appeared on her datapad. 1 million human soldiers died defending their homeworld from an invasion. The grief of their families was so intense, so unified, that it literally reversed time to prevent the deaths. The hologram showed the battle playing in reverse, the dead rising, the explosions unhappening, reality itself unwinding like a broken clock. But changing the past creates paradoxes, Captain Mordak realized. Temporal loops, causality breaks. Exactly. The humans saved their loved ones but nearly collapsed the space-time continuum in the process. Local reality became unstable. Stars flickered in and out of existence. Planets aged backwards. The survivors realized their power was too dangerous even to themselves. Nexri found another record, this one a video message from someone who looked remarkably ordinary for a being capable of reshaping reality. "My name is Dr. Park," the human said in accented galactic standard. "If you are watching this, it means we have chosen to sleep. We are too dangerous awake. Our emotions, our collective will. It changes everything around us without our control. We will dream together, all of us, and in our dreams we will be safe." They put themselves into voluntary stasis. Veltar breathed. An entire species chose dormancy rather than risk destroying the galaxy. Dr. Kira's instruments began beeping frantically. "Ambassador, I'm detecting massive energy spikes from the direction of Earth. The quantum fluctuations are increasing exponentially." "The dreams are ending," Captain Mordak said grimly. "After 3,000 years, the humans are waking up." As they stood among the ruins of human civilization, watching their instruments scream warnings about the impossible energies building around Earth, they all understood the same terrible truth. The galaxy had feared what slept on Earth, and soon they would remember why. Dr. Kim wiped the sweat from his forehead as he watched the alien shuttles descend from the sky like silver teardrops. The rice fields around Seoul stretched endlessly in all directions, golden stalks swaying in a breeze that seemed to sparkle with tiny lights. He had been expecting this day for months, ever since the shared dreams had begun showing him visitors from the stars. "They're really here," whispered Dr. Lee, his research partner, as she adjusted the translation device they had built based on blueprints that had appeared in their dreams. Just like we saw in the visions, the shuttles landed softly in the clearing they had prepared. Dr. Kim straightened his simple white lab coat and walked forward with open arms, a genuine smile spreading across his face. Behind him, a small crowd of villagers watched with curious eyes, their children peeking out from behind their parents' legs. The shuttle doors opened with a soft hiss and 4 alien figures emerged. The tall one with 4 eyes moved carefully, as if afraid the ground might explode beneath his feet. Dr. Su. Kim could sense their fear, their confusion, their amazement at the energy readings their instruments must be showing them. "Welcome to Earth," Dr. Kim said in carefully practiced galactic standard, bowing deeply in the traditional Korean manner. "We have been waiting for you." Ambassador Veltar stared at the human scientist with complete bewilderment. His instruments were screaming impossible readings. The power signature radiating from this ordinary-looking man should have been enough to level mountains, yet he stood there smiling like a friendly grandfather welcoming guests to his home. "We bring greetings from the Galactic Confederation," Veltar said cautiously, his hand never moving far from his emergency beacon. "Your species has been absent from galactic affairs for some time." Dr. Kim laughed, and the sound somehow made the air itself shimmer with rainbow colors. "We've been dreaming," he explained simply. "All of us together. The same dream, shared across the whole world. It kept us quiet, kept us safe." Dr. Kira activated her scanners discreetly, trying to understand what she was seeing. The quantum field around the humans was unlike anything in her databases. Reality seemed more flexible here, more willing to bend to suggestion. The very atoms in the air appeared to be listening to these people. "The dreams are beautiful," added Dr. Lee, approaching with a group of children from the nearby village. "We see gardens that grow in space, cities that float between stars, peace spreading across all worlds. But lately, the dreams have been troubled." As she spoke, the children began to play around the alien visitors. One little girl, no more than 6 years old, picked a handful of wildflowers that bloomed instantly in her palm, their petals shifting through colors that had no names. A boy threw a paper airplane that looped through the air, defying gravity as it danced around Captain Mordak's head. Fascinating, Dr. Kira whispered, watching a child draw pictures in the dirt that moved and told stories. The power manifests unconsciously in the young ones. They don't know they're doing anything special, Dr. Kim explained, noticing the aliens' amazement. To them, this is just how the world works. Flowers bloom when you want them to. Toys behave the way you imagine. They should. And if you wish hard enough, the rain stops just long enough for you to get home. Nexri pulled out her recording device, but it began malfunctioning the moment she activated it. The data it collected showed readings that contradicted each other, as if reality couldn't decide what was actually happening. How long have you been dreaming? Ambassador Veltar asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Since the last war, Dr. Kim replied, his expression growing sad. We learned that our feelings, our thoughts, they change things around us. When we're happy, flowers grow. When we're sad, it rains. When we're afraid. He gestured toward the sky, where storm clouds were beginning to gather despite the clear morning they had started with. The children sense your fear, Dr. Lee explained, gently. They're trying to protect us, but they don't understand that you're not really a threat. Captain Mordak noticed that his weapons had stopped working properly. Not broken, just uninterested in functioning. It was as if the very concept of violence was being gently discouraged by some invisible force. We've been having the same visions for weeks now, Dr. Kim continued. Warnings of danger from the stars, ships filled with fear and hatred. Is that why you're here? Are we in danger? The question hung in the air like a physical thing. Veltar felt the weight of 7 billion sleeping minds beginning to stir, beginning to focus on the possibility of threat. Around them, the air grew, thick with potential energy. Some in the galaxy fear your return, Veltar admitted carefully. They remember the old stories. The stories are true, Dr. Kim said simply. We can change things just by thinking about them. When we work together, when we all want the same thing, we can change anything. That's why we chose to sleep. One of the children, a boy named Jun, tugged on Dr. Lee's sleeve. The dream is ending, isn't it? He asked in Korean. We're going to wake up now. Dr. Lee knelt down and hugged the boy gently. Yes, little one. The long dream is ending. But don't worry. We're older now, wiser. We won't make the same mistakes our ancestors did. As if responding to her words, the wind picked up, carrying with it the sound of 7 billion people slowly opening their eyes after 3,000 years of shared sleep. The age of dreaming was over. The gentle giants were awakening, and the galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Zekton gripped the command chair of his flagship as the extremist fleet moved through hyperspace toward Earth. His 3 hearts beat with the rhythm of absolute certainty. Behind him, 150 warships carried enough firepower to crack a moon in half. Sir, we're approaching the Sol system, reported his weapons officer. All ships report ready for immediate attack. Zekton nodded grimly. The Confederation Council had been fools to send diplomats instead of soldiers. The humans were awakening, and every minute of delay made them more dangerous. He had read the classified reports, seen the evidence of what they had done in the year past. Better to end this threat now while they were still drowsy from their long sleep. Target their major cities, he commanded. We strike fast and hard. No warnings, no negotiations. The galaxy's survival depends on our actions today. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, weapons already charging. Earth hung before them like a blue jewel, peaceful and defenseless. No orbital defenses, no military vessels, nothing but a sleeping world full of the most dangerous beings the galaxy had ever known. All ships fire on my command, Zekton ordered. On Earth, Dr. Park felt the shift in the collective dream that had sustained humanity for 3 millennia. She sat up in her small apartment in Busan, her hands trembling as the shared consciousness of 7 billion people suddenly screamed a warning. Across the planet, humans began waking from their long sleep, not gradually as they had planned, but all at once in response to mortal danger. They're here, she whispered, reaching out with her mind to touch the thoughts of her sleeping species. They want to kill us all. In Seoul, Dr. Kim dropped his teacup as the vision hit him. Ships in space, weapons pointed at his world, at his children, at everything he loved. The cup fell toward the floor, but stopped in midair, held by the sudden tension in reality itself. "Wake up," he said, and his voice carried across continents through the shared dream. "Everyone wake up. Now." Admiral Zekton watched his tactical display with satisfaction as the attack began. Energy beams lanced out from his fleet toward the helpless planet below. Victory would be achieved in minutes. Then something impossible happened. The beams simply stopped existing. "Sir, what happened to our weapons fire?" the weapons officer asked, his voice rising in panic. "Fire again," Zekton commanded, but even as he spoke, he could see his ships beginning to flicker on the display screens. On Earth, 7 billion minds, touched by the same protective instinct, focused their collective will on a single thought. These ships should not exist. These weapons should never have been built. This attack should never have happened. Dr. Park stood on her balcony, looking up at the sky where she could somehow see the enemy fleet with her naked eyes despite the impossible distance. Around her, her neighbors emerged from their apartments, all of them connected by the same ancient network of shared consciousness that had kept them safe during their long sleep. "Make them go away," whispered an old grandmother holding her grandson's hand. "They were never there," agreed a young father, thinking of his daughter playing in the park below. "The weapons that point at our children do not exist," said a teacher, her mind joining with millions of others in the same thought. Admiral Zekton felt reality shift around him like water. His flagship began to fade, becoming transparent at the edges. Through his viewports, he could see his other ships suffering the same fate. "Sir, the humans are doing something," his science officer reported, though his voice sounded distant now. They're editing us out of existence." "Impossible," Zekton snarled, but he could feel his own body becoming less solid. "We are here. We exist. We have always existed." But the collective will of humanity disagreed. The attack fleet had never been built. The shipyards that constructed them had never been established. The wars that led to their creation had never been fought. The metal they were made from had never been mined. One by one, the ships and their crews were gently removed from the timeline, their existence becoming nothing more than a bad dream that reality chose to forget. In orbit around Earth, Ambassador Veltar's observation ship watched in horror as the attacking fleet simply wasn't there anymore. His instruments showed no trace of their passage, no evidence they had ever existed. "What happened?" Communications Officer Nexri asked, her voice barely a whisper. "They never were," Dr. Kira replied, checking her records with shaking hands. "According to all databases, that fleet was never constructed. Those ships, those crews, their entire history has been edited." On Earth, Dr. Kim approached the alien delegation with tears in his eyes. The other humans gathered around him all shared the same expression of profound sadness. "We tried so hard to stay asleep," he said to Ambassador Veltar. "Do you understand why we chose to dream for so long?" Veltar shook his head, afraid to speak. "Because of what just happened," Dr. Park explained as she joined them. "We can't control it when we're threatened. Our survival instinct overrides everything else. We don't just defend ourselves. We remove the threat from existence entirely." "The Jeju War taught us this lesson," Dr. Kim continued. "We fought an invading force and won, but the cost was terrible. When our soldiers died, their families' grief was so intense that it rewound time itself to prevent the deaths. But you cannot change the past without breaking reality. The temporal paradoxes nearly destroyed our solar system. That's why we chose to sleep," Dr. Park said. "Our power is too great, too emotional, too dangerous. When we're afraid or angry or sad, the universe itself bends to make us feel better. We can reshape reality with our feelings, but we cannot control those feelings." "And now you're awake," Veltar observed. Dr. Kim nodded sadly. "Now we're awake. And we remember why we were afraid to be." 3 months after the attack fleet vanished from existence, the Galactic Confederation Council gathered in their great chamber on Nexus Prime. Representatives from 1,000 worlds filled the curved seats, their voices creating a buzz of nervous conversation that echoed off the crystal walls. At the center of the chamber, a holographic display showed Earth hanging peacefully in space, but everyone knew that peace was deceptive. Ambassador Veltar stood at the speaker's podium, his four eyes scanning the assembled delegates. "Honored representatives," he began, his voice carrying across the vast hall. "We are here to discuss humanity's return to galactic affairs. What we have witnessed in recent months has changed everything we thought we knew about power and responsibility." The display shifted to show images of the Vega system, where 3 worlds had been locked in brutal warfare for over 2 centuries. The planets now appeared as garden worlds, green and blue and beautiful, with no trace of the devastation that had consumed them for generations. "The humans ended the Vega conflict," Veltar continued. "Not through military intervention or diplomatic negotiation. They simply decided that the war had never happened." A representative from the Altair Federation rose from her seat. "You mean they rewrote history again?" "Not exactly," Dr. Kira replied, stepping forward with her datapad. "They didn't change the past. They changed the present understanding of it. The people of Vega still remember the war, but they also remember choosing peace. Both memories exist simultaneously, and somehow, that allows them to move forward without the hatred that fueled their conflict." Murmurs of confusion and fear rippled through the assembly. The concept of holding contradictory memories as equally true challenged their understanding of reality itself. The display changed again, showing the Rigel system where a plague had been killing millions for decades. Now the images showed healthy populations going about their daily lives, with no sign of disease anywhere. "The Great Plague of Rigel," Veltar explained. "The humans didn't cure it. They simply decided it didn't exist. The disease was gently removed from reality, along with all the suffering it had caused." "But what about free will?" demanded a delegate from the core worlds. "If humans can change our thoughts and memories, how do we know our decisions are our own?" The question hung in the air like a physical presence. Then, to everyone's surprise, a new voice answered from the chamber's communication system. "Because we choose not to take that from you." The voice belonged to Dr. Cho, speaking from Earth. Her image appeared in the holographic display, standing in what looked like a simple garden behind a modest house. Around her, children played while their parents tended to plants that seemed to grow in impossible colors. "We have been listening to your discussions," Dr. Cho continued, "not through your technology, which we could easily override, but because you chose to invite us into your deliberations. We respect that choice, just as we respect all choices made by thinking beings." Another human joined her in the display, Dr. An, an elderly man whose kind eyes somehow conveyed both great wisdom and terrible power. "We learned something during our long sleep," he said. "Power without restraint destroys everything it touches, including the one who wields it. We will not make that mistake again." "But you could?" pressed the Altair delegate. "You could control all of us, make us think whatever you wanted us to think." "Yes," Dr. Cho admitted simply. "We could, but we won't. That is our covenant with the galaxy. We will help when asked, heal when needed, and protect when threatened. But we will never rule." The display showed new images. Human volunteers working alongside alien scientists to solve energy crises. Human children teaching alien youngsters how to make flowers bloom with their thoughts. Human artists creating works that somehow conveyed emotions directly into the minds of their viewers regardless of species. "We offer partnership," Dr. An explained. "We can share our abilities, teach others to touch the deeper layers of reality, help solve problems that seem impossible through conventional means, but always as equals, never as masters." "And what if we refuse?" asked a delegate from the Outer Rim territories. "What if we don't want your help?" "Then we will respect that choice," Dr. Cho replied. "We will maintain our presence in the Sol system and help those who wish to be helped, but we will not force our assistance on anyone." "However," added a third voice, and Dr. Kim appeared in the display, "we must also establish boundaries. Anyone who attempts to weaponize our abilities, control our people, or use our power for conquest will find themselves discouraged. The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop several degrees as every delegate felt the weight of 7 billion. Awakened minds focused on that single word, discouraged. Ambassador Veltar stepped forward. The Confederation Council hereby recognizes Earth as a sovereign world with special status. The quarantine protocols will be modified to allow voluntary contact while maintaining protective barriers for both humans and the wider galaxy. We accept, Dr. Cho said with a bow. But understand, we are no longer the same species that went to sleep 3,000 years ago. We have dreamed together, learned together, grown together. We are something new now, something that has never existed before in the galaxy. What are you? Veltar asked quietly. Dr. Kim smiled, and for a moment, every being in the chamber felt a touch of the vast, gentle consciousness that connected all of humanity. We are what happens when a species learns to dream the same dream and then chooses to wake up together. We are the gardeners of reality, the healers of what was broken, the guardians of what should be protected. We are human, Dr. An added simply, and we are finally ready to come home to the stars. The Assembly voted unanimously to accept humanity's return to galactic civilization, though every delegate understood that the galaxy would never be quite the same again. The gentle giants were awake, and their dreams were becoming reality.